I think it really boils down to this false dichotomy between regulation and innovation. Those two things can exist simultaneously. And I think that's what Canadians are calling for. I know that's what young people are calling for, right? Like, they want access to social media platforms. They want access to AI systems that can help make their lives work better for them. They can make them more productive. They can give them access to information they might not get otherwise. But they want that in conjunction with legislation that makes the system safer. And I think the government historically has thought about this idea of regulation as stifling the power of tech innovation. And in our view, that is totally misguided, right? I think if anything, developing regulatory or legislative mechanisms or broader governance mechanisms to support healthy development of tech tools will actually make the integration of them stronger and adoption rise and public trust kind of go in conjunction with that as well. And we're seeing that in these early discussions with young people through Gen Z too.
The AmberMac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Welcome to the AmberMac Show. Coming up in today's show, we tell you about the first major AI-led global cyber attack, how Disney is embracing AI Slop, and why AI music is making its way into your music feeds. And Jeff, on a positive note, we'll also learn about a group of 100 young people working together to shape the future of AI in Canada.
I'm looking forward to hearing more about that, and we also have some good news about cleaner energy solutions for a greener future, and I'll dive into what you need to know about online sports betting. But first, let's get to the headlines.
Newsfeed.
We've been told for a while about the enormous implications, both good and bad, that come from AI's interaction with cybersecurity. And Anthropic recently admitted that its cloud AI model was hacked by the Chinese government and used to carry out cyber attacks against around 30 targets around the world, including financial institutions, government agencies, and other businesses.
This is just really, really big and important news. Anthropic noted that this is the first documented case of a large-scale cyber attack conducted primarily by AI, estimating that Claude managed about 80 to 90% of the effort, with a human being involved only at a few critical choke points. This is not the first attempt to do so, though, with Google catching Russian hackers using large language models as part of malware attacks earlier this year, and Anthropic itself having recently detected and quashed a previous attempted hacking of Claude.
And we've interviewed ESET's chief security evangelist, Tony Anscombe, on the show. His coworker, Jake Moore, noted a terrifying consequence of this kind of use of AI, saying, I quote, "Not only is this what many have feared, but the wider impact is now how these attacks allow very low-skilled actors to launch complex intrusions at relatively low costs."
Wow. And speaking of hackers, The Guardian recently covered how two Israeli-founded and American-owned cyber weapons makers are courting the Trump administration in an effort to have their software used by the U.S. government. Now, their spyware can be used to hack phones, to listen to calls, to read texts, track locations, and much more. It's also been suggested that it could be used by U.S. immigration officials and other government security bodies. Both Apple and WhatsApp have gone on the record saying that they would warn their users if they suspected that they were being targeted.
And another warning we've been covering is around the AI bubble. And none other than the investor who was the inspiration for the Big Short movie, Michael Burry, has said that investments in AI infrastructure are not being honest about the lifetime of the chips they're buying, which can account for 40 to 60% of the cost of a new data center. So while many big tech entities are calculating their costs based on a 6-year lifespan for chips, the reality could be half that amount of time. And that's just another aspect distorting the investment potential for those companies and leading to thoughts about a bubble.
And this is not really helped by incidents like Sam Altman being asked on a podcast how OpenAI can justify spending of more than $1 trillion on computing infrastructure, given the company's revenues are only about $13 billion. And this is what Sam Altman responded, and I'm quoting here. First of all, we're doing well, more revenue than that. Second of all, Brad, if you want to sell your shares, I'll find you a buyer. I just enough. I think there are a lot of people who would love to buy OpenAI shares, end quote. And then Sam Altman left the podcast early.
Yeah. Stupid Brad, eh? It's not a great confidence builder. And frankly, the CEO of a company as big as OpenAI needs to have a better answer than that for a very, very reasonable question. And there are more questions than that that need to be asked of OpenAI. For instance, Forbes just reported that it might be spending as much as $15 million a day running its Sora video Slop app. So you have to wonder how that plays into making more money. And while there are reports of OpenAI trying to make an AI-powered personal health assistant, which certainly could be lucrative, it's just the scale of these numbers. It's pretty hard to close the enormous earnings versus spending gaps, even with big moves like into the AI health space.
Yeah, I mean, this story was definitely making its rounds on social media, and I think you brought up a good point that anyone in Sam Altman's position should be able to answer just simple questions without walking away. Now, those data centers use an incredible amount of energy. We've covered this a lot on this show, but there's actually been some good news on this front. As reported by Electric.co, wind and solar are now growing fast enough to meet all new electricity demands worldwide. And this is also impressive. Fossil fuel power generation won't be increasing for the first time since the pandemic.
Yeah, that's pretty great news. And it'll be really interesting to see how all that holds up as all of these data centers go online because they're going to be making more demands than anything. But US Energy Secretary Chris Wright has also gone on the record saying that his department's loan programs office is really going to focus on nuclear power plants. And, people have their problems with nuclear power plants, but they're probably the only way we're going to generate enough clean energy for the power hungry AI we have moving forward into the future.
Jeff, I'm looking forward to a future The Other Mac on nuclear. I feel like it's only a matter of time with you.
Will do.
Now, we recently had Cory Doctorow on talking about the enshittification of the internet, and we just talked about OpenAI's Sora video slop generator. But I have to say, I was also surprised to hear Disney's CEO, Bob Iger, recently discussing AI partners, saying, and I'm quoting here, what AI is going to give us the ability to do is to provide users of Disney Plus with a much more engaged experience, including the ability for them to create user generated content and to consume user generated content, mostly short form from others, end quote. This is a little bit surprising, Jeff, to hear this from a company who has been so hard nosed about AI companies using its IP.
Yeah, and it sounds like a terrible addition to me. The thing about Disney is they used to be very dedicated to their animators and like their type of animation was the best because they had the most skilled people doing it. My first job out of grad school was with Mainframe Entertainment, and I've got such respect for people who do this. So seeing them now, obviously they'd rather use their own IP and are rightfully can use their own IP, but to use it with AI seems like a step backward. And so I'm going to be looking forward to giving up my Disney Plus subscription when it comes up for renewal next month, especially since we just finished watching the newest season of Only Murders in the Building with my beloved Steve Martin, and actually finishing off Firefly, which is a great Joss Whedon sci-fi series that I somehow missed in the 2000s.
I don't think I've watched anything on Disney Plus since, The Mandalorian. I feel like
Oh, wow, it's been
that
a
was
while
yeah,
then.
that has definitely been a while, so I might have to reevaluate that subscription as well. Now, sticking with entertainment, it looks like we've got a follow-up to the Velvet Sundown AI music slop coverage with the AI artist, if you can call it that, breaking Rust, making it to the top of Spotify's viral 50 songs in the States. Now, I am not the biggest country music fan, do not come at me for this, but this it just doesn't seem like very good music to me with lyrics like, and I'm quoting, "I've been broken, been bruised, being used, had folks talking like they know my shoes." What do you think about this, Jeff?
I think that's you gotta read some more of the lyrics too. They're all, like, so bad. AI is like high school poetry gone wild. Everything, like, rhymes, but it doesn't really hold together very well. And YouTube's Rick Beato, so if you're into music and don't follow him, you definitely should, at Rick Beato on YouTube. He pointed out, just like with the Velvet Sundown that we covered, this song really reached the top because it's a novelty, not because of the quality of the song. But something that may be a bit clever about Breaking Rust that he also pointed out is that it looks like it reached the top of Billboard's country digital song sales chart first. And think of who buys music anymore? Not very many people. But what he was saying, that that really prompted the coverage, because they could say AI music reached the top of the charts, even though it's on this very strange little chart that isn't all that relevant. But that it could easily have been the human creator of the group buying something like $3,000 worth of digital downloads, and he would have gotten media coverage that would have cost so much more than that few $1,000s. So there's a cleverness to it there, but I'm just adding this to the reasons why I'm not a professional musician anymore. And please, God, can we get some reliable AI content labels sooner rather than later,
Oh my
please?
goodness. Hopefully we will get that because I think that is absolutely much needed. Now we're going to switch from music to sports. Jeff, I am so excited about this next segment because it's something on the internet I don't know a lot about. So Jeff is going to take a look at online sports betting. That's coming up next in The Other Mac.
The Other Mac.
Unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you may have noticed the extraordinary increase in sports betting in recent years, and I, for one, think it needs to stop. Let's get some context. In late 2024, the respected British Journal of Medicine, The Lancet, published a 4-year study on gambling, finding that global losses by gamblers could surpass $700 billion by 2028. Indeed, more than 46% of adults and almost 18% of adolescents engaged in gambling in the past year, with online gambling contributing substantially to that growth. Unfortunately, the study estimated that gambling disorders affect 15.8% of adults and 26.4% of adolescents who gamble using online casino or slot products, and 8.9% of adults and 16.3% of adolescents who gamble using sports betting products. Globally, sports betting alone is predicted to reach almost $80 billion in 2025, with almost a quarter of that coming from the US. But you may be surprised to learn that user penetration in the sports betting market is actually highest in Canada at 57.2% of the population. And Canada is predicted to have the highest compound annual growth rate in sports betting from 2025 to 2030 in the world, with online being the biggest revenue generator. So the U.S. legalized online sports betting in 2018, but left it up to individual states to decide upon the legality and regulation. Today, almost 40 states have some kind of legal online betting. A mid-2024 paper called The Financial Consequences of Legalized Sports Gambling noted that for online sports gambling, legalization increased the risk of a household going bankrupt by 25 to 30%, as well as increasing debt delinquency. And another paper from the University of Oregon found that legal sports betting led to a 9% increase in domestic violence. And there are mental health effects that vary from anxiety and depression all the way up to suicide. In fact, suicide is highest among addicts for gambling. In Canada, the federal Liberals under Trudeau passed the Safe and Regulated Sports Betting Act in mid-2021, making it, quote, lawful for the government of a province to conduct and manage a lottery scheme in the province that involves betting on a race or fight or on a single sport event or athletic contest. Well, this change has taken place with an explosion of virtual gambling in Canada since the pandemic and a doubling of online casino users since 2020. So what do the lobby groups who dedicate themselves to enabling sports betting claim to be their motivation? It's typically that they claim it allows increased regulatory oversight to provide better consumer protection, that it will diminish illegal gambling, and then it can bring in lots of tax revenue. Well, Charles Fane Layman's Legalizing Sports Gambling was a huge mistake piece in The Atlantic points out that in Massachusetts, at least, bettors were just as likely to use unauthorized betting sites after legalization, and that more broadly, the tax revenue is simply not enough to be worth the societal costs. Indeed, online sports betting seems to be yet another case of weak-willed politicians letting purveyors of addiction, from social media to online gambling, off the hook for the damage they cause because of lobby group pressures and a poor understanding of the net negative effects on society. So what can we do here in Canada? Well, first of all, we need to protect young people. This means making sure that there are effective age checks conducted before any online gambling can be accessed. And as far as I'm concerned, given the exceptional susceptibility, especially of young men, to sports betting, if companies in Canada can restrict renting a motorhome to people 25 years or older, then how about we do the same age for online gambling? Now, that may be difficult to achieve, but what shouldn't be difficult is reducing the ridiculous amounts of online sports betting ads we see. The CBC reported in 2024 that about 1/5 of your time spent watching sports broadcasts is actually spent watching gambling ads, and it was almost double that for some games. That's ludicrous and it's harmful. So if Canada can forbid tobacco advertising from Canadian radio and TV, then let's do the same for sports betting, something that 2/3 of Canadians polled already want to have happen. This isn't going to go away by itself, so let your federal and provincial representatives know how you feel, and let's do right by our young people. I'm TheOtherMac. Good luck out there.
The AmberMac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Gen Z AI is a pioneering national initiative designed to empower young Canadians to shape the future of AI policy and governance. Over the next 6 months, Canadian youth aged 17 to 23 will lead a national conversation about how artificial intelligence should be developed, deployed, and governed in ways that are safe, fair, and aligned with the public interest. Helen Hayes, Director of Strategic Development at the Centre for Media Technology and Democracy, joined Amber in a conversation to share more.
AI Spotlight.
Helen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I am really interested in what you're doing because one of the things that we've been doing on this show over the past few months is talking a lot about AI, how it affects young people, but we don't often hear from young people. So I was really excited to see some of the work that you're doing and how you're bringing young people together across Canada. So tell us about it.
Of course. So, alongside Fergus Lindley Moda, I have developed a project called Gen Z AI, which is a pioneering national initiative designed to empower young Canadians aged 17 to 23 to help shape the future of AI policy and governance in the country. And so, over the next 6 months or so, we're going to be leading a national conversation about how AI should be developed and deployed and governed in ways that are safe and aligned with public interest. And we're going to do that by hosting a series of forums across the country in Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver, and in Halifax. And each of them will explore a specific dimension of AI's impact on young Canadians, from things like AI chatbots to information integrity and data privacy and age assurance.
I think one of the things that really excites me about the work that you're doing is that the group that you are working with right now at McGill, you have a lot of research and data insofar as how AI is affecting our society as a whole. I should also mention we've had a few interviews on the podcast recently that we did at Attention Govern or Be Governed. And it's clear to me that the next generation is going to be profoundly impacted by artificial intelligence. Can you
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about some of the concerns you may have that led to the formation of this group?
Definitely. So, studies that have come out earlier this year, and almost weekly, I feel like there's a new one literally constantly, show that Canadians have pretty low levels of trust in AI. And that extends to young people who may not actually trust these systems, but still use them, or at least have to use them constantly. And so, from that knowledge about a lack of public trust in computational technologies like AI systems, like chatbots, I wanted to basically come up with a way to get people involved, to talk about those feelings, talk about why they're experiencing low levels of trust, what they want us to do about it, what they think the government can do about it, and importantly, just carve out that space for young people to actually have the opportunity to do that type of work, because they're the most affected they're the most digitally engaged, but they're often not actually involved in conversations about this. And so I wanted to create the opportunity to allow young people to not only engage with other young people across the country, but also to learn from experts, to be guided in deliberative exercises that allow them to translate their experiences to concrete policy recommendations to help basically allow them to shape the AI future that they're hoping to have.
I think it's also interesting when you do speak to young people, and I'd be curious if you have found this so far with this group, is that they are much more aware in terms of the impact that AI is having on them. And they are both users of AI, but also in some cases, victims of this technology insofar as chatbots. So, what have you found in these early days just hearing from younger people on this topic?
Yeah, it's a great question. We just hosted our first forum last weekend in Toronto, and we heard about the impacts of chatbots on young people's lives directly from them. And just in those early conversations, we saw a particular set of themes emerge across experience. Really urgent concerns related to the mental health impacts of large language models, the erosion of critical thinking skills, particularly caused by cognitive offloading, and risks of unfiltered exposure to harmful or hateful content like sexually explicit material or extremist content or self harm content. And those themes emerged hugely across all of our discussions with young people. They're fully aware of what's going on to their brains, to their social lives, to their work when they are overly reliant on AI systems, and they want something to be done about it.
And when you think about the possible solutions and what can be
Mhm.
done, I just had a conversation this morning. I was coming out of a local radio station where I was talking about the impact of chatbots and how people more and more, especially young people, were using chatbots for mental health and therapy. There is this sort of shrugging of the shoulders among a lot of people that say, "Hey, you know what? The toothpaste is already out of the tube. There's no controlling this. There's absolutely nothing that we can do."
Mhm.
I totally disagree with that statement. I think there is something that can be done. But your group is the expert on this. What can be done, and what type of policy recommendations do you see even in these early days coming out from the work you're doing with this group?
It's a great question. So there's a lot of focus amongst the participants who are actually drafting these policy recommendations themselves, which is awesome, to focus on addictive design features, to integrate content filters, block certain responses, have the option to delete data caches, or to determine responsiveness and conversationality in chatbot systems. Just from these early conversations, we're really seeing a clear understanding that young people have about a desire to contain a desire for chatbot systems to contain ways to empower users. So like opt-out functions, like I said, content filtering, and to make sure that people have the digital literacy skills to engage with tech systems like chatbots in ways that allow them to stay safe and to be empowered by their use.
We are in a really unique position, I think, here in Canada because we do have a highly educated group of young people that are adopters of this technology. And at the same time, I think we are impacted by some of these big tech companies in a way that's different than other parts of the world. I'm thinking specifically around Meta. So, Instagram and Facebook platforms, for example. We know the report that just came out that we talked about recently on the show that Meta made $16 billion from scam advertisements in 2024. At the same time, news is blocked in this country. And so we're at a point where I think the influence of these platforms and the way that they are dictating how young people sort of see the world, how they interact with each other, how they form relationships with these synthetic AI companions. It is so significant. What do you think about this topic in terms of the impact of these technology tools and these big tech companies in the social space and beyond?
This is an incredibly important question, and a question that really guided the development of this project. I think young people want governance mechanisms in place, and there's a huge level of misunderstanding that young people are apathetic or not engaged on topics related to governance of tech systems, particularly. And we're seeing, just with the overwhelming response we've had to this project in particular, that you can have a flourishing tech ecosystem in the country while also propping up safeguards that actually enable the trust in those systems to develop over time and could both support adoption and rollout of AI technologies, could support healthier use of social media platforms and other apps, while also recognizing the fact that without that trust, without that kind of metric of engagement with people on these issues, that ecosystem will never flourish in the same way. And we're hoping that through this project in particular, in touching on questions about big tech and about AI development and about AI integration across spaces, that we can start to bring young people into the conversation to enable a better tech future for them, obviously, but also for all other users. And we're really excited about that hopefully happening.
I think it's also fair to say that this is not a new problem. I'm thinking back to kind of the early days of social media. I know almost 10 years ago, I wrote a book on this subject, and this has been a growing concern and issue over the years. But I think one of the things that always kind of surprises me is that, and I see this across various levels of government, it's not an issue that people talk about with the same urgency that Canadians do. And I always found that a little bit bizarre in terms of what the gap is. Like, Canadians are feeling this. We know from all of the research and data, especially young people, they're feeling that these social spaces where they're interacting, these AI systems are potentially taking advantage of them. They know this, and yet you don't hear government officials really talk about this in a meaningful way in terms of what safeguards can be put in place. Why do you think we continue to have this gap when Canadians are experiencing this, especially with their kids and young people experience this so intimately?
I think it really boils down to this false dichotomy between regulation and innovation. Those two things can exist simultaneously. And I think that's what Canadians are calling for. I know that's what young people are calling for, right? Like they want access to social media platforms. They want access to AI systems that can help make their lives work better for them. They can make them more productive. They can give them access to information they might not get otherwise. But they want that in conjunction with legislation that makes the system safer. And I think the government historically has thought about this idea of regulation as stifling the power of tech innovation. And in our view, that is totally misguided, right? I think, if anything, developing regulatory or legislative mechanisms or broader governance mechanisms to support healthy development of tech tools will actually make the integration of them stronger and adoption rise and public trust kind of go in conjunction with that as well. And we're seeing that in these early discussions with young people through Gen Z too.
You mentioned that you had your first meeting with all of these young people. What did you learn from that meeting when you see young people getting together and discussing these issues that are affecting them in so many different ways?
Young people have such a strong appetite to have these conversations. They've clearly been left out of them on the policymaking side for far too long. And as soon as they're in a room together, as soon as they're guided through deliberative exercises and they gain kind of evidence-based understanding of policy issues, they immediately are able to track their experiences into policy recommendations that are strong and that could help their social experience with AI systems or other computational technologies becomes stronger. It's clear that they have an appetite to be engaged in this way, and they're so smart. The policy recommendations coming out of just a few days of engagement with young people are just as valid, if not more, than policy recommendations that we see coming from government and other quote unquote experts. And so I've been learning certainly that young people in this country deserve to have their voices heard. They deserve to be part of the policymaking conversation. They deserve to have that representation. And instead of having policy made for young people to protect young people, we need to actually create the policy space so that we can do that with them. And they clearly want it. It's so exciting and exhilarating to see the enthusiasm that they bring. And it's also very promising because clearly we're in good hands.
I think there is also a misconception out there that young people aren't interested in these topics. So I'm curious how you found these young people and got
Mhm.
them together. What was that process like?
Great question. We launched a big recruitment for 100 17 to 23-year-olds across the country in the 4 cities that were hosting forums in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and Halifax. And we did this all through social media. So we announced that we were doing this project. We had an overwhelming response. And then we conducted this thing called a civic lottery, which basically is kind of a random sample of all of the participants who then get selected to participate using what's called a demographic representation model. So we make sure that the rooms that we have in each of these cities are representative of the broader Canadian demographic, um, broader Canadian demographics, and we make sure that we're hosting this in an inclusive and participatory way. And we luckily had just so much engagement on that recruitment that we were able to make that happen.
So I know it's hard to predict the future and take me through till the end of this process, but I'm really curious what comes out of this? What will be some of those next steps? How do you fight and organize for actual change?
So alongside our in-person forums in Canada in these 4 cities, we've also launched a simultaneous civic tech project. So we've partnered with a French organization called make.org to implement this large-scale interactive online engagement process that will allow thousands more young Canadians across the country to weigh in on the policy recommendations that our in-person participants put forward. After that, we are going to compile the results of both the in-person process and the online engagement process and present all of our findings, all of our recommendations in a final plenary session in Ottawa, where our participants will actually be able to present their results to public servants, to policymakers, to parliamentarians. And we come up with this kind of layered model, the in-person with an online engagement process, so that we could keep deep deliberation in the room and also have broad public validation online so that we have legitimacy and representation and scale associated with the policy recommendations that come out of this process, and then provide that mechanism for our participants to actually speak to the people who could make the change and could basically take their recommendations and put them into action.
Well, I am so excited to see all the work that you're doing. And I'm sure for people who are listening to this, who maybe have young people within that age group, you mentioned this going out also beyond just this initial group. How can other people get involved if they are interested in this?
Shoot me an email. We're at the Center for Media, Technology, and Democracy at McGill University. This project is particularly held in partnership with the Dialogue on Technology project, which is housed at Simon Fraser University. And you can find more information on our website, Media Tech Democracy. Um, yeah,
And last question for you: what has this been like personally for you?
it's been amazing. The Participation in policymaking is my favorite thing to do. I find it incredibly empowering. As a young person myself, being able to actually bring other people my age into a room and talk about these pressing issues that I care about and they care about is just such an empowering thing to do. And I feel so lucky to be able to do it.
Well, listen, we feel lucky that you were able to take the time and join us because, again, we talk a lot about the issues all the time, and it's nice to see some solutions. So, Helen, thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you, Helen and Amber. Next up, we chat about the future of Canada's energy economy and where we need to go next.
You're listening to The AmberMac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.
Kate Koplovich is a senior policy analyst at the Howe Institute. Based in Calgary, Alberta, her over 10-year career has focused on positioning Canada's energy sector as a global leader while enabling a low-carbon economy. She joined Amber to discuss the future of Canada's energy economy and the country's role in our global energy transition. Here's their conversation.
That's science.
Kate, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Canada's energy sector is under pressure to decarbonize while also staying competitive globally. How do you see our position evolving?
Canada, we know, is well positioned to lead and navigate decarbonization. And decarbonization is critical for our global competitiveness. Our country has abundant natural resources, technical expertise, and companies developing decarbonization technologies and solutions. We can talk about some of those solutions later, but we also have stable institutions, which means a lot right now. In fact, we have 15 free trade agreements with over 51 countries. But to better strengthen our position, we need to ensure policies are pragmatic and balance priorities like reducing emissions, but also reducing red tape and making Canada an attractive place to invest and improving our competitiveness. This is critical, and we need to get that right to ensure our country's long-term leadership.
Let's talk about those balanced priorities, because I think this is top of mind for so many people when we talk about a balanced policy between climate goals and economic growth. What does this actually look like in practice?
So we know that businesses need certainty and predictability to make long-term investment decisions. And we all know energy investments are more often than not those long-term multi-year investments. So we need clear, predictable policy signals and market-based mechanisms that enable and also encourage private investment in low-carbon technologies without sacrificing jobs or industry competitiveness. You know, in Canada, we have some great companies that are developing low carbon technologies like injecting carbon emissions into concrete, making concrete net zero, direct air capture, which basically removes carbon out of the air, and others. That's really the important piece of balancing these competitiveness aspirations and climate goals.
There really are some of these stories like the ones that you mentioned that are really incredible examples of innovation in the energy sector here in Canada. It is probably also fair to say that we need more of that, especially at this moment in time. Where do you see some of the greatest opportunities in terms of innovation and growth in the energy sector in Canada?
So as you said, I just named a few. So zero emission concrete, direct air capture, lithium for battery technologies, hydrogen, critical minerals. I mean, the list goes on. As I mentioned, Canada is incredibly well positioned to really develop and export these low carbon technologies. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that, of course, energy is critical for lots of other industries as well. So when I think about energy and aviation, I think about sustainable aviation fuels as just another example.
I wanted to ask you to come back to the theme of a balanced approach. When we think about policymakers, they struggle to balance short-term politics with long-term strategy. What policy approaches does Howe Institute research recommend on this front?
We recommend clear, consistent carbon pricing and regulatory streamlining and collaboration between the federal government and the provincial governments to ensure a cohesive national energy transition. When I look at the Build Canada Act, the federal government designated several projects as nationally important. But what we also need to understand is those projects that aren't designated as nationally important also need to have regulatory streamlining and to be able to be developed. I also think it's important to not only consider the technologies we need to decarbonize, but also the people and the skills that we need. And the Institute recently released a paper on future-ready workforce strategies for the energy transition. And the paper found that the good news is most Canadian workers already possess many transferable skills that we will need as we transition to a lower carbon economy.
It is, as I mentioned, a really interesting moment in time. And I think it is fair to say that most of us are kind of focusing on day to day because there seems to be so many challenges, including challenges in the energy sector. But I wanted to ask you for my last question, if Canada gets this right, what does success look like for our energy future?
Success is that Canada will be a trusted global energy partner and provider. We'll have a role in both exporting clean energy and solutions, while also right here at home delivering jobs, resilience, and sustainability. And we will have lots of research coming out in the next few months on these exact topics.
Kate, this is a really big topic. So for people who are interested in reading more, where is the best place for them to go?
You can learn more and read more of our CD Howe research on the CD Howe Institute's website.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amber and Kate, and thanks to the C.D. Howe Institute for supporting the AmberMac Show. Coming up next, we've got some last-minute Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals with tech expert Marc Saltzman.
Talking Tech.
The holidays are just around the corner. Everybody is looking for a great deal on tech. And one of the perfect times of the year to shop is, of course, on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Marc Saltzman is here with some great deals. Marc, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Amber, for having me. Always great to chat with you.
Okay, so we are going to start with gaming. What is new and newsworthy in terms of gaming gift ideas?
Yeah, for sure. Well, if you're a PC gamer, your audience is maybe like I am, then handheld gaming is super popular because you're not just restricted to playing on your laptop or on your tower PC, or even for console gamers who are usually tied to their TV. I'm referring, though, to the ROG Xbox Ally, which is the brand new handheld PC that blends sort of the power and versatility of Windows 11 with an Xbox-like user experience and intuitive controls on each side of that 7-inch screen. So yeah, you can play it on the go, backseat of a car on a road trip this holiday season, or when you get home, you can dock it and play it on your big screen TV. But it works with all the PC game stores out there like Steam and Epic Game Store, Microsoft Store to play all your favorite computer games. I love that. It's got an AMD Ryzen processor and graphics, which is really fast. So there's both the ROG Xbox Ally in white for $799. That's a sale price over Black Friday. And then for a little bit more, you can get the ROG Xbox Ally X, which is an all-black handheld PC, handheld gaming PC that has a little bit more power and longer battery life and a few other bells and whistles. So great stuff there. I'm a big fan of ROG, which is a division of Asus. So that's really great. And then for storage for this handheld unit, SanDisk has officially licensed storage or micro SD cards for ROG Xbox Ally. So they're branded as such. They have capacities up to 2 terabytes. So that's about 50 games that you can store on that little thing the size of your pinky fingernail without having to delete games you still want to play, right? That's always the challenge, is these games are getting really big. They're also fast cards because you want to play these games and keep up with that action. And you want to spend more time playing and less time loading and waiting, right? Also, they are shock-proof, drop-proof, and X-ray proof. So great stuff from SanDisk. They're on sale, about $30 off, down to $69 to start. And it goes all the way up if you want that 2 terabyte version. So yeah, SanDisk.
Very cool. And I know during the holidays that there are often gaming titles that are really popular. And I know another fun thing is to talk about projectors. So you have really something for everyone in both of these categories.
Yeah, thanks, Amber. So yeah, speaking of games, Ubisoft is one of my favorite video game developers and publishers, and they just launched Just Dance 2026 edition, which is on sale for $25 off over Black Friday. I believe it's from the November 20th to December 8th, if I'm not mistaken. But this is a December 3rd, rather. So this is, of course, the game where you dance in front of your TV with or against your friends and family. This time around, 40 new tracks, both like contemporary songs as well as classics. You can also play this new party mode, which is a lot of fun. They've developed a whole story with animation to it. There's a Bluey medley for those who have younger kids, and a camera control option. So for Just Dance 2026, and even as far as Just Dance 2023, you can set up your smartphone with this app, point it towards you, and then you don't have to hold the controller at all when you're dancing. It tracks your body in real time. You just have to be on the same Wi-Fi network. But again, that's $25 off for Just Dance 2026 edition. There's also Star Wars Outlaws from Ubisoft. That's $20 off from November 20th to December 3rd. And that's now available for Nintendo Switch 2. It came out last year for the PC and some other platforms, but Nintendo Switch 2 now has that. And then, yeah, you asked about projectors. So Epson has a brand new line of 5 different projectors, in fact, called the Life Studio series. And the Pop Plus, I think, is great. And it's also $100 off leading up to Black Friday. So this is a portable 4K projector with high lumens of brightness. It's got 700 lumens of white and color brightness. It's got built-in Google TV as a platform, so you can stream from your favorite free and paid services, and a partnership with Bose. So great audio coming out of this projector. So whether it's for the boardroom or your family room, or a kid's bedroom, because it is portable, you have a sleepover, during Christmas with some cousins or whatever, you can splash a movie on the ceiling. 150 inches, by the way, with that. And there's also an app that works with it called the Epson Projection Studio that lets anybody in the room mirror what they've got on their phone and add to photos and videos that everybody can all watch together. So great stuff from Epson.
Yeah, that is such a cool gift. Another great gift idea is a TV. And I know you're also going to talk about how to stay safe when you are shopping online, because some of the things we're talking about, they could be a few $100s into the thousands. So you want to be as safe as possible.
Yeah, that's a great way to end off on a tech tip in a moment. But yeah, first, if you're in the market for a new TV, LG has up to 70% off their products over Black Friday. That's not necessarily TVs, it could be monitors as well. But definitely there are going to be some great sales. If it is time to upgrade your OLED television, or maybe buy your first one for perfect blacks and really rich colors, the LG OLED Evo AI C5 4K Smart TV is great. So that's the C5 model number. It's an AI TV because there is an integrated AI assistant, and you can use your voice with the remote to adjust settings or switch to different modes and all that. It's got sizes from 43 all the way up to 83 inches, 42
Wow.
inches, all the way up to 83. Yeah, so wall size permitting. The one that I've got, I've been showing it on TV. It's nice and portable, 42 inches, but absolutely stunning. Again, OLED is the way to go, and LG's been crushing it for like 12 years in this space. It's not just an AI TV, but it's got built-in web OS for all the smart TV features you want. And for gamers, it's got 144 hertz refresh rate and 0.1 millisecond response time. So it'll keep up with the fast-paced action. That's LG.ca. And then finally, yes, as you eloquently put it, this is the time of year where we're making bigger purchases. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of Black Friday, but you need to protect yourself. And so RBC has a website, rbc.com/cyber. It's called Be Cyber Aware, where they've got an article that lists all of these very simple, plain English tips on how to protect yourself when shopping online. Little things like, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So do some cross-referencing to make sure other stores have a reasonable price, like a similar price that is to the one that you're seeing. If it's so much lower than everything else, then your spidey sense should be tingling. It doesn't say that in the article. That's my, right. Opt for multi-factor authentication, of course, where you not only need your password to log into your online accounts, but a one-time code sent to your mobile phone that you also need to type in to prove it's really you. Make sure you use a credit card or any other secure payment that offers buyer protection. And then finally, only shop where it says HTTPS as in secure, or look for that little padlock in the web browser to make sure it's an encrypted connection. So again, rbc.com/cyber.
Always good tips. During the holidays, I should say that we see each other a lot more. And I know you're going to come back on in a few weeks and talk about some more holiday tech. So, Marc, thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you in a few weeks.
Looking forward to it. All the best, Amber. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks, Marc and Amber, and thank you for listening to the AmberMac Show. As always, you can find us on social media and wherever you get your podcasts, and check out all our videos at youtube.com/AmberMac.
You're listening to the AmberMac Show on Canada Talks, Sirius XM 167.